So I want you to imagine standing in this damp, dimly lit room in Padua, Italy. It's the year 1609.
Setting the scene, I like it.
All right. And you hold in your hands this simple tube. It's fitted with two curved glass lenses.
A very rudimentary telescope.
Exactly. You point this instrument toward the night sky, you aim it at Jupiter, and you see something completely impossible.
Tiny celestial bodies orbiting the giant planet.
Yeah, the moons. So you rush to share this massive discovery with the greatest academic minds of your era, expecting them to be, totally thrilled.
But they weren't thrilled at all, were they?
Not even a little bit. They refuse to even look through the glass. They literally tell you that relying on a mechanical instrument to understand the heavens is, well, epistemologically invalid.
Because in their minds, curved glass distorts light, so it obviously creates illusions.
Yeah, they thought it just couldn't be trusted to reveal the truth.
Well, they operated under this framework where truth was only deduced through philosophical logic and naked eye observation.
Right.
Looking through that telescope wasn't just some neat new technique. It was viewed as breaking the fundamental laws of how human beings were supposed to acquire knowledge.
Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today, we're basically turning this space into a graduate level seminar on the philosophy of science and ethics.
And we've got a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. I'll be putting on my doctoral student hat to unpack the syllabus with you. And our mission today is to tear down the illusion that science is just this pristine, flawless machine that automatically churns out objective truth.
It's definitely not a flawless machine. It's a very human process.
Totally. We are going to examine how the rules of scientific discovery are written, how progress actually often requires shattering those rules, and crucially, how we build the ethical guardrails that keep the whole enterprise from devolving into a dystopian nightmare.
To understand where those boundaries lie, we really have to start at the philosophical bedrock.
The heavy stuff, right?
Yeah, the heavy stuff. Any discussion about the nature of science inevitably wrestles with two core concepts, ontology and epistemology.
Right, which sound intimidating, but they're foundational.
Exactly. Ontology is essentially the study of what is real. It asks, what is the fundamental nature of existence?
And then epistemology is the study of knowledge itself.
Right. It asks, how can we possibly know what is real and what tools are actually valid for discovering it?
I always visualize those concepts like a massive multiplayer video game.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, so ontology is the source code running on the server. It is the underlying digital reality of the game world, the gravity, the collision mechanics, the basic what is.
And epistemology would be the interface then.
Exactly. Epistemology is the physical controller in my hands and the monitor I am staring at. It represents the limits of my perception, how I interact with that digital reality, and how I build my understanding of the game's mechanics based on the feedback I get through the screen.
That's a great analogy. And the prevailing assumption for centuries was that our epistemological tools, our controllers and monitors, just kept getting slightly better over time.
Like downloading a slow patch.
Right. The traditional view of scientific progress was modeled as this slow, linear accumulation of facts.
Just stacking bricks.
Exactly like stacking bricks. A researcher makes a discovery, lays down a brick of knowledge. A decade later, another researcher discovers a new fact, lays another brick right on top.
And over centuries, humanity just constructs this massive, solid wall of objective truth.
But that brick wall metaphor completely falls apart when you actually look closely at the history of science.
Yeah, it really doesn't hold up. Enter Thomas Kuhn in 1962.
Right, the physicist and philosopher. He published this incredibly influential book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions.
And he argued that science doesn't smoothly stack facts at all, right? It operates within paradigms.
Yes. Kuhn defined a paradigm as the entire accepted framework of a scientific community at a given time.
So it's not just the facts, it's the whole vibe.
It's everything. It encompasses the accepted theories, the standard methodologies, and even the specific questions researchers are actually permitted to ask.
And he termed the period where everyone just kind of agrees and operates under these rules as normal science, I think.
That's right. During normal science, researchers aren't usually making earth-shattering discoveries. They're basically just puzzle solving within the borders of that established rulebook.
But, the universe is incredibly messy, and eventually the puzzle pieces just stop fitting the board.
which Kuhn called anomalies.
Right, anomalies. And when scientists operate under a dominant paradigm, they tend to just ignore those anomalies at first, right? Or they bend over backwards mathematically to force them to fit the existing framework.
They absolutely do. But when those anomalies pile up too high, the discipline enters a full-blown state of crisis.
And the Copernican revolution is like the ultimate historical case study for this kind of crisis.
Oh, absolutely. Before Copernicus, the Ptolemaic model absolutely dominated astronomy.
This is the geocentric paradigm, right?
Yes, it placed the Earth firmly at the absolute center of the universe, with the sun, the moon, and the planets all revolving around us.
Which had been the accepted ontological reality since ancient Greece.
But as astronomical observations became more precise over the centuries, the geocentric model started failing to predict planetary movement accurately.
Because astronomers would observe that planets like Mars would occasionally appear to just stop in the night sky, move backward for a while, and then move forward again.
Right, that phenomena is called retrograde motion.
And in a universe where everything is supposed to revolve in perfect circles around the Earth, retrograde motion makes absolutely no logical sense. It was a massive anomaly.
So to save the paradigm, Ptolemaic astronomers invented this crazy geometric workaround called epicycles.
Right. They theorized that planets moved in these small, tight circles while simultaneously moving along their massive orbital circles around the Earth.
And as predictions drifted again over time, they just added more epicycles on top of the epicycles.
So it's basically the astronomical equivalent of spaghetti code in software development.
Spaghetti code, yes.
They just kept adding these convoluted patches to the system until the entire framework was totally unreadable.
The anomaly was retrograde motion, and the increasingly absurd patch was the epicycle.
Until 1543, when Nicholas Copernicus looked at this tangled, failing mathematical mess and proposed a radically different geometry.
He placed the sun at the center, the heliocentric model.
And by doing so, he eliminated the need for those complex epicycles entirely.
Right. Retrograde motion was suddenly explained not by planets doing loop-de-loops, but simply as an optical illusion.
Created when a faster-moving Earth bypassed a slower-moving outer planet in its orbit. It's so elegant.
It is. But the shift from Ptolemy to Copernicus wasn't merely a software update to the math. It was a total demolition of the prevailing ontological structure.
Yeah, humanity was abruptly evicted from the center of the universe.
It rewrote our theological standing, our philosophical significance, and our physical place in the cosmos.
So the old wall of bricks wasn't just added to, it was torn down right to the foundation, and a new structure was erected using entirely different blueprints.
That is the essence of a paradigm shift. The answers change because the allowable questions change.
The criteria for what counts as valid evidence are completely rewritten.
Exactly.
But wait, so if scientific progress isn't just adding bricks, but actually relies on tearing down the house and building a new one every few centuries, doesn't that imply that the solid, undeniable facts we rely on today are actually highly provisional?
It does. It absolutely does.
Like, we might just be sitting comfortably in a temporary paradigm, waiting for the next crisis of anomalies to overthrow our entire understanding of reality.
Kuhn forces us to adopt a really profound level of epistemological humility. What we consider absolute truth today is simply the most functional model available within our current limited paradigm.
Wow. Okay, so if the overarching paradigms keep changing and the rules of the game are basically temporary, the idea of a universal scientific method feels highly suspect.
It does start to look a bit shaky.
Right. Like, why adhere strictly to a rigid methodological rulebook if the rulebook is destined for the historical fretter anyway?
And that skepticism was taken to its extreme by the philosopher Paul Feyerabend in his 1975 book, Against Method.
He's the epistemological anarchism guy, right?
Yes, he championed epistemological anarchism. He argued forcefully against methodological monism,
which is the belief that there is one single objective scientific method that guarantees truth across all disciplines.
Exactly. Feyerabend looked at the history of monumental scientific breakthroughs and realized they didn't happen because researchers meticulously followed the established rules.
They happened because researchers actively violated them.
He advocated for methodological pluralism, and he famously summarized his entire philosophy with the phrase, anything goes.
Okay, but does anything goes mean I can just, throw random chemicals into a beaker, call it science, and demand a Nobel Prize? Or is it more nuanced than that?
We definitely have to be careful with the phrase, anything goes. Feyerabend wasn't advocating for sloppy execution, random chaos, or pseudoscience.
So no random beaker throwing.
No. He meant that we shouldn't let dogmatic procedural checklists suffocate creativity.
Ah, I see.
The greatest minds in history had to borrow tools from different disciplines, invent new instruments, and entirely ignore the prevailing methodological constraints of their day to make a leap forward.
Which brings us right back to Galileo in that damp room in Padua.
Yes, perfect circle back.
The academic establishment wasn't just being stubborn about looking through his telescope. They operated under a fundamentally different set of epistemological rules.
Right. In the early 17th century, Aristotelian logic was the dominant framework.
You acquired knowledge through rigorous deduction and naked eye observation.
Exactly. A mechanical instrument like a telescope was considered an artificial intervention that polluted the data.
Because lenses were known to distort light. I mean, they were used in carnivals to create illusions.
So trusting a curved piece of glass over pure philosophical reasoning was considered a severe methodological violation.
Galileo had to completely rebel against the epistemological rules of his era just to gather the evidence necessary to support the Copernican paradigm.
If he had submitted his methodology to the academic gatekeepers of his day for approval, they would have rejected it outright.
So progress actually required an act of methodological rebellion.
According to Feyerabend, yes. His argument is that if scientists had consistently adhered to the proper method dictated by their respective eras, we would be perpetually stuck in the intellectual dark ages.
You have to be willing to tear up the rule book to see the universe clearly.
Breaking the rules of methodology is a necessary engine for discovery.
But, and this is a huge but a profound friction arises when we shift from how we study stars to how we study human biology.
A very dark friction, yes.
Right. Because if Feyerabend argues that we must abandon rigid rules to discover the truth, what happens when discovering the truth requires human test subjects?
We have seen the horrific consequences when the relentless pursuit of data operates without constraints.
Yeah, when researchers decouple scientific ambition from moral responsibility, human beings are just reduced to mere variables.
The syllabus points directly to the Tuskegee syphilis study as a foundational failure of research ethics.
It's so chilling. From 1932 to 1972, researchers observed the natural progression of syphilis in hundreds of African American men.
And even after penicillin became the standard, highly effective treatment for the disease, the researchers deliberately withheld it.
Because they just wanted to see what would happen. The men were systematically deceived.
They were told they were receiving free health care from the federal government for, quote, bad blood.
The researchers viewed the collection of longitudinal data, literally just watching the disease ravage the human body until death, as more valuable than the lives, health, and dignity of the subjects involved.
The medical experiments conducted on concentration camp prisoners during the Holocaust operated on that exact same chilling logic.
It was the pursuit of physiological data completely stripped of any humanity.
Subjects were exposed to freezing temperatures, infectious diseases, and untested drugs, all under the guise of scientific advancement.
It is wild to think we actually needed formal boards to tell researchers not to brutally exploit people.
It is. But those historical atrocities are what finally catalyzed the creation of the modern system of research ethics.
They prove that science cannot self-regulate its own morality.
Exactly. This led directly to the establishment of institutional review boards, or IRBs.
Right. And today, an independent committee must rigorously scrutinize your research design before you are permitted to interact with a single human or animal subject.
And the absolute cornerstone of that review process is informed consent.
Meaning participants must fully understand the risks, the methodology, and the underlying purpose of the study.
It's not just a legal liability waiver. It is a fundamental recognition of the subject's autonomy and ontology.
They are active participants, not passive materials.
Right. And they retain the absolute right to withdraw from the experiment at any time without penalty.
So the IRB frameworks force researchers to constantly weigh the potential benefits of the knowledge against the risks to the participants.
And this ethical mandate extends well beyond just the clinical trial phase into publication ethics as well.
Because the epistemological integrity of the data relies entirely on transparency.
Yes, we utilize double-blind peer review, where neither the authors nor the reviewers know each other's identities, to strip away institutional bias and personal vendettas.
We also mandate that researchers declare conflicts of interest, like If a researcher publishes a landmark paper claiming a new chemical compound is perfectly safe.
But their laboratory is heavily funded by the corporation manufacturing that compound.
Exactly. Then the data is epistemologically compromised. The public and the scientific community have a right to know the financial incentives behind the methodology.
The tension between the drive for discovery and the ethical obligation to protect subjects is a permanent fixture of modern science.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. Consider a scenario where we are facing a rapidly mutating pathogen. A global pandemic is actively shutting down societies and costing thousands of lives daily. In a crisis of that magnitude, couldn't someone argue that the red tape of IRBs just slows down progress that could save millions?
Someone will always argue that speed is more critical than agonizing over informed consent forms or double-blind protocols.
Right. If breaking the rules saves millions, shouldn't the ethics board just step aside?
Relying on speed at the expense of ethics is a catastrophic miscalculation. Ethics isn't bureaucratic red tape. It is the foundational infrastructure of public trust.
That's a powerful way to frame it.
If a scientific institution cuts corners on human safety or bypasses informed consent to rush a vaccine, the resulting loss of public trust will endure for generations.
People just won't take the medicine.
They will actively reject public health guidelines.
Yep.
A monumental scientific breakthrough is entirely useless if society views the scientific community as exploitative or untrustworthy.
The pursuit of knowledge just cannot override the value of the people we are supposedly seeking the knowledge for. But here is the modern dilemma. IRBs and informed consent frameworks were designed for traditional experiments, testing a new pharmaceutical drug, conducting a sociological survey, observing behavior.
What happens when technology outpaces the very concept of a trial?
Right. We are stepping into a modern frontier where our ontological definitions and ethical frameworks are being stretched beyond their breaking points.
Technologies like CRISPR-Cas9 are dismantling the old paradigms faster than regulatory bodies can even write new rulebooks.
So if traditional IRBs are like the brakes on a car, CRISPR and AI are like strapping a rocket engine to that car before we've even learned how to steer at that speed.
That is a very accurate and terrifying analogy. CRISPR allows researchers to edit genetic code with the precision of a word processor.
We are no longer just observing DNA. We are actively cutting and pasting it.
The potential is staggering. We could theoretically eradicate hereditary conditions like Huntington's disease or engineer crops capable of surviving severe climate change.
But the ethical implications reached a terrifying flashpoint in 2018, right? With the Chinese biophysicist He Jiankui.
Yes. He utilized CRISPR to alter the genomes of twin human embryos, attempting to make them genetically resistant to HIV.
He implanted those embryos, and those babies were actually born.
He completely bypassed international scientific consensus and crossed a profound ethical red line. He altered the human germline.
Meaning the genetic edits he made won't just affect those twins.
Right. They are hard-coded into their DNA and will be passed down to their children and their children's children.
He permanently modified the human gene pool without global oversight or societal debate. It's mind-blowing.
It introduces dilemmas that sound like science fiction, but are currently science fact.
If we possess the technical capability to edit out a debilitating genetic disease, the leap to editing for height, enhanced intelligence, or physical endurance is purely a matter of time and market demand.
We face the potential commodification of human biology. Designer babies. If genetic enhancement becomes a premium medical service available only to the affluent, we cease to have a mere socioeconomic wealth gap.
We engineer a literal biological caste system where inequality is written into the DNA of the next generation.
Traditional ethical bodies are really struggling to regulate a technology that can alter the trajectory of human evolution.
And we are witnessing a parallel crisis in the rapid deployment of artificial intelligence, too.
Oh, absolutely. AI development is moving at breakneck speed.
And the ethical blind spots are massive because the technology integrates into every facet of daily life simultaneously.
Algorithmic bias is a critical epistemological flaw in AI right now. A machine learning model is really only as objective as the data it is trained on.
Right. So if we feed an AI historical data regarding lending practices, criminal justice sentencing, or hiring patterns,
that data contains decades of human prejudice and systemic discrimination.
The AI internalizes those biases.
It amplifies them. But because the output comes from a computer, it is shielded by this veneer of objective mathematics.
We just assume the machine is neutral, even when it is essentially weaponizing our own historical flaws against us.
And we are generating unfathomable quantities of data every second of every day.
These AI systems are designed to harvest that data, find hidden patterns, and predict human behavior with just terrifying accuracy.
The privacy implications alone require a completely new approach to oversight. Who actually owns the data?
How is it being used to manipulate consumer behavior or political discourse?
This is precisely why modern research demands multidisciplinary ethics boards.
Right, because it crosses so many lines.
A computer scientist trained to heavily optimize the efficiency of a neural network might completely lack the sociological background to anticipate how that network will disenfranchise a minority community when deployed at scale.
Just like a geneticist might know exactly how to edit a sequence, but they need an ethicist in the room to help weigh the generational consequences.
We need technologists, philosophers, sociologists, and legal scholars all collaborating simultaneously to foresee the cascading impacts of these tools.
So, to kind of bring this all together, science is really not a sterile collection of facts stored in a heavy textbook.
Not at all.
It is a continuous high stakes negotiation. On one side, you have the relentless drive to discover the Feyerabend style rebellion to tear down the old models, build new instruments, and force a paradigm shift.
And pulling against that drive with equal force is the moral imperative to protect human dignity, ensure informed consent, and maintain societal stability.
Scientific progress only truly serves humanity when those two forces hold each other in check.
Beautifully said.
So, before we close the books on this seminar, I want you to think back to the Ptolemaic model we discussed earlier.
The geocentric one.
Yeah. For centuries, the smartest, most highly educated people on the planet were absolutely certain that the Earth was the immovable center of the universe.
They had the observational data and the math to prove it, as far as they knew.
Today, we are actively editing the human genome and building artificial minds that can learn and adapt. So ask yourself, what fundamental scientific truth or what unshakable ethical norm that we accept today as absolute reality will be viewed by students sitting in this exact seminar 100 years from now as completely unbelievably outdated?
The frameworks will always shift. Our responsibility is to ensure that when the paradigm breaks, we don't lose our humanity in the rubble.
Keep questioning the paradigms. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.